Configuring the backend, Section 5. In this section, we'll continue working with the CRUD operations by modifying all the APIs to interact directly with MongoDB. We'll be using Mongoose and its functions to perform all these CRUD operations. Querying documents using find. We'll start off in this section in this video by making queries using the find function. This is a Mongoose function that mirrors the underlying MongoDB's find function for fetching data. And here is the syntax for the find function. You would pass in a query. The query is the filter, which is a document of filters. And the projection is optional, just for returning any field types you want to return. And this function returns an array of documents. Here is a list of some statements in MongoDB and how they will be translated to statements in SQL Server. So feel free to pause the video to review them and see the similarities. Let's go over to Visual Studio Code and create our read operations. Okay, so let's go to the back end. And in the previous video, we modify our APIs folder, and we added into the app.js file this import here. So I'm going to remove this. And first of all, notice that we didn't add any data to the database yet. So if you go to Compass, there's nothing here. We don't see it because there's no data. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and just create one very simple document here first to populate the data. So go to the database file, and then right in here, we're going to use the provider.create. We'll create one very quick object in here. And because you're using the data here, it needs to follow this schema, right? So that means we have to go into the models and grab one copy, like this first one here, without the ID. I'm going to copy this and paste it right in here. Okay, it should pass all the validations here. So let's save this and go to the terminal and run our app. Successful. So now this should already been created. Let's go to the MongoDB Compass and refresh our database. So you see that now it's created here, providers here, and we have one document, and it's now working. Okay, so we're good here. So now, since it's visible now, we can go ahead and then delete this for now. And I'm going to import all the data from the provider JSON file to this library, this collection. So import the file inside the, again, in the source data file, the new provider's JSON file. This is the one we want to get. It's the same copy of the data we saw in the code, except now we have removed all the IDs and it just contains all the fields. Okay, so we ignore that and stop an error just in case. Import, and now we have all the data here for us to work with. So 20 records. Okay, so we can now go back to the code, and I can remove this now. I don't need this anymore. And let me just turn this off. And then also in the app.js file, I'm going to remove this. I don't need this anymore. Okay, so we're done here. So we're good. I'm just going to add one more thing to this file right here. This is like the route. I want to get one more just in case that if you ever go to like a URL, you're gonna go to a certain page. So you put like star here. That's like a wildcard, and that will take you to the home page every time. So just a safeguard thing. So we save that. So this one is done. Now I'm done with the DB also. Don't need that anymore. We need to go into just the controller here. Where this is where all the events occur. We're not going to use this anymore. Okay, this is coming from just the object file, and I realize I have a typo here. This is like misspelled, OTH, all this time. Okay, so this is not needed, but we'll leave this for now. Everything will be managed in the MongoDB, so we want to make sure we can check for the objects empty, or now we keep that. Existing providers, we don't need that anymore, so I can comment this out. The unique ID generation, we don't need that either because MongoDB will do that for us. It will prevent that from being created. And then I think that's good to go. Yeah, so the rest will be good to go. Okay, so now we need to import the DB here. So we're going to have constant DB. Instead of DB, I'm going to call it provider, all right? The same name I had in the other file. So this will be coming from the DB folder and then the DB file. Okay, so this is the provider will allow us to do creation and things like that. We'll keep that, and let's go down here to the create. We'll do that later. We're going to do the read. So here's the read. We'll do a read all and read one. Okay, so right in here, we check to see if the provider is empty or not. We'll leave that. So right here, we're going to do a read all. So we'll do provider.find. Use the find function. Okay, and if it's going to return a promise, and we set the then result is the data result comes to that variable, and then we'll do a call here inside here if it's successful. If it's not, they're going to catch the error. Okay, here, and we'll do something like that, right? And then log the error like that. Okay. And so this whole thing is going to go inside that successful part in here, like that. Now, we also want to catch it, so it's always safe to do the try catch to handle any, uncaught error that might not have been caught there. And we'll do that as well, catch the error here. We're just going to, log that to the console. We can also show differently, but for now we'll be fine. So say error. Okay. So I realized that we're going to have a lot of these error and so on. So we're going to create a function up here to make it a little more feasible. So we have a function here to like handle all the errors. Okay, so we say handle errors, and function handle error. We're going to pass to this because we're going to send that over to the API. We're not showing this to the browser, so we're actually sending a copy of this like an error, right? We put that in here in the function. So that means I need to get the res object and also the error message. So we'll return not the provider but the error. Okay, maybe we'll put a message like we see down here. So something wrong, right? We say something went wrong, and then we'll put this /n for a new line, and then we'll just plus the error message to go out there. So we'll do that there, and so we can say handle error. We pass that to this part right here on the catch. Put that here, and we'll also put that here as well. Okay. All right. So now the fun part, and let me format this. Okay. So the fun part is when we find what are we looking for? Well, we find everything. There's no matching, so you can leave it blank like that, or you can put the empty set like this. It's fine too. That's totally cool. But you can just leave it like that. It's okay. And finds everything. If it's successful, then all the data will become will store in this result as an array, and then we're going to check if it's empty or not, right? If it's none, then it will be 0, and we say the list is empty. Otherwise, we successfully retrieve that and return the result, not the providers anymore, the result to who will request that data. Okay, so let me save this, and we'll just test this part to make sure it works. The other one will be still calling from the object file, so that should be okay. So let's save that. And now we need to fire up the Postman. And we use Postman to check our API. Okay, so make the connection here, and it's coming from localhost. Port 27017 and API/providers. Okay, we're going to do a get. If it's successful, we're going to get some data, and something's wrong, so let's see why. Well, yeah, I think the port is not right. That's the database port. I think it's 3000. That's the one we use. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so all right, it works. So here we go. These are all the data that comes through. There should be 20 of them. Okay, you can count them. You can write a code to the test in here to show the code, but we have 20 of them. And so that works. If I want to select only one from the ID, now we put that here, and we're going to fetch that from the database. So here, nothing because we didn't code that. So let's go and then do the other one. So we got that part done. So now let's work with the get one, kind of similar to this one here. So we are first going to go in here. We get one only. So we need the ID, right? This part, yeah, we need that. The ID field also need that. Now this one we don't need. Okay, so this can be commented out, and we're gonna get the ID. Let's put that above here. That's the first thing we want to do. Check for the ID. And because our ID is an object ID, not a string, so we have to convert this to an object ID. So that means I have to go to the very top here, and let me maximize the screen. So I need to import in here the object ID from the MongoDB. Okay, so it will convert that to the actual ID so we can compare in our code. Otherwise, it won't work. So right down here, we need to cast that to an object ID. Okay. And once we got that, then we can compare in our search. But again, it's the try catch thing. So try, and then we'll catch it down here. I'm going to copy one I have up here. Put it right down here, at the very bottom. And I'll clean up in a little bit. So this is where we do the search. Right here will be provider.find again. And then the result comes in if it's successful. And they also catch the error. So I'm going to copy the catch error up here. This one goes right in here. And then all of these, okay, will go right inside this part here. So I'm going to copy all of these lines 90 through 97 and drag it inside the line 87, and then we'll right click and do a format. So there we go. Everything's cleaned up now, and we are good to go. So now the find, this time we're going to match the ID, this ID here. Okay, so we'll do a filter here. We have the ID field in the list and the database. You can use the quote ID underscore ID matches this ID here. If it matches, then return that document only. Okay, if you don't put any other options, the whole thing will be returned into the result, and we check the result here, see if it's empty or not. If it's not empty, then we are good. Go ahead and send that data over, and we're going to send that result over, not the provider. Otherwise, let's say the list is empty and nothing's read. So let's save that and go over to our Postman, and this time try it again, the same ID here. So run it, and there you go. We got the ID back, and it's successfully working. So again, if I take that out, and if I try to get all of them, okay, good. If I try this ID here and get that ID back, looks good. If I try a different ID, let's say put a B here, okay, and now you get the message, right? Because it said something went wrong, and the error is you have to use a 12 bytes string or a 24 character hex character. So all these have to be 24 characters. So it's kind of cool here. If I put something else like a C or something, there's nothing there, then well, it does match for some reason. Good guess. What about X? Yeah, so there's no data. And I put probably too many letters here. Okay, so that is good to go, and we are good here in this part. So in the next video, we'll insert documents into the database using the create method.